Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So it is almost sunset, but I thought I would come out here very quickly and walk you through the garden, show you how the garden has progressed this week. We had a little bit of a scare in that we had some insanely cold temperatures the last couple of nights. Last night was especially bad. Got up and the thermometer that I had outside looked to be reading 31 degrees. But we had covered everything up, and for the most part, it looks like everything actually made it unscathed, which is amazing. Alright, so first of all, we have this skinny raised bed over here is all flowers. I've got several bulbs that I planted. Primarily everything is perennials. I do plan on building a couple more like this coming year, as well as a couple more that look like that. So this week I need to come out here and thin out my sage and thyme. The thyme, I'm actually going to dig some of that up and give it to a friend of mine. She wants to start an herb bed, and so I'm going to share some of that with her. And then the sage, I'm going to just harvest a whole ton of it and dry it and put it in my pantry. Over there on this side of this trellis, I planted some loofah gourds, and I have the first seedling that has come up. I don't see any more yet, but there's one. And then when I was going through and planting all of my tomato plants, I had a little bit of an incident where all of my tomato plants, or the most of them, got all mixed up, and I planted all the tomatoes where I wanted the tomatoes, and I still had a ton of tomato plants left over, and so I just kind of planted random tomato plants here and there. There's one right there, and there's one over there. Now, if I remember correctly, these two, I'm fairly certain, are the Berkeley tie-dye, pink tie-dye tomatoes. And then these are Dr. Wykes, or Dr. Witches, and two Paul Robeson tomatoes. I've never grown Paul Robesons, so we shall see how they do. I have seeded this end down here with some flowers, and I can see there's some sprouts coming up right there, some little babies. This bed down here has a few things planted. Some of it has not yet been planted because over there on the porch, you can see a table back there, I have a ton of baby plants. And as they get big enough, they will be planted and filling in all of the spaces that I have. So down here, so far I've got a Columbine. This purple and white flower, I've had a lot of people asking me about this. It is called an angel-faced Snapdragon, and this one's actually two tones, white and purple, and this is a perennial. It'll come back every year. Down here I have a dahlia that I had planted. I've also got a bunch of sprouts, babies, that have come back, and these are things that are coming back from last year that had self-seeded. For instance, right over there I've got a whole bunch of cosmos coming up, and I think that might be some zinnias right there. I don't know. We'll have to see. Over there along the trellis, I planted some cucumbers, and so far I see one that has broken through over there. That's the only one so far. This bed over here is all sorts of peppers. I have 10 different varieties of peppers that I planted this year, including Jigsaw, bell peppers, Chinese 5-color, all sorts of them. And then I've got a couple heads of lettuce that self-seeded from last year. Over on this end, I seeded this with different kinds of poppies. So far not seeing anything. And then right over there in the middle by the metal chicken decoration, I planted some sunflowers, and I can see those are coming up. And speaking of sunflowers, right down there at the base of the T-post, you can see one there. There's one right in the center, And then it looks like I have 2 of them down here. One of the seeds, when I stuck it in the ground, it didn't look very good. It was like a puny seed, so I went ahead and stuck 2 there because I wasn't sure that that one would actually do anything. And it did. Those are the Mongolian giant sunflowers, and when I thought of the idea of looking out here and just seeing random giant sunflowers out in the garden, it inspired me, and so I came out here and that's exactly what I did. I also have one down here in this corner. This is some purple kale that I had stuck in here, and the thing about that purple kale is, while it's going to be too hot to really eat it, it's a pretty cool looking plant when you let it go. It looks like a tall purple palm tree of sorts. And so I decided to go ahead and just leave those there, let them grow up, let them go to seed, collect the seeds. Down here along the trellis, I've got Kajari melons that have sprouted. That flower down there is a salvia, and it's kind of this bright magenta color. And then here I've got several different varieties of tomatoes. I have actually buried the tags, so I'm going to have to kind of dig those out and see if I can figure out what variety they were again. I know the ones down there are the Berkeley tie-dye as well, just because I had so many of them that came up and thrived. But these 2 down here, I'm pretty sure were something else. I'm kind of leaning towards the Dr. Witches, but I don't remember. I will tell you straight up, this year is going to be a little bit of an adventure as far as the tomatoes go, because probably half of the tomatoes are going to be mystery plants. I have no idea what they are. I mean, I know what varieties I planted this year, but my seedlings got all mixed up, and so we'll just have to see. I made the mistake of having trays like those back there on that table and not labeling every single pot as I was planting them, as I was transplanting them out of the soil cubes and into their own little pots. That is a mistake I will not make again, especially when it comes to tomatoes, because so many of the varieties, as they're beginning to grow, look so much alike you can't really tell them apart. So right here as I come in the gate, we have green beans coming up on the trellis. And calling these green beans is not exactly accurate. These are purple podded green beans. So these are new to us this year. We've never planted this variety before, and so they should be interesting. And then here and there I've got all sorts of volunteer zinnias that self-seeded from last year. Over on this trellis, these are the NT Half Runner green beans. These are a variety that we did plant last year. We really liked them, and so we're going to be enjoying these again this year. Over here I have a sunflower that's self-seeded from last year. I transplanted it from a random spot and stuck it right there when it was a seedling. I'm pretty sure that's a lemon queen sunflower, but we'll know for sure once it gets bigger. And there's another zinnia right down next to it. This flower is a perennial. It's Coreopsis. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, like I said before, I had all sorts of tomato plants, and so I just started sticking tomato plants everywhere. Every tomato plant in this bed here, this no-till in-ground bed, is a mystery to me. I have no idea what any of them are. So it should be interesting. Now, several of them, most of them were planted about a week or so ago, and I have mulched them with straw. Over the course of this coming week, everything is going to get mulched. But I had some extra plants that were over there in the cold frame area that were just going to get tossed into compost. I hadn't tossed them yet, but they were actually doing really good, even though they were being completely neglected. So I figured I'd just grab a couple of them and stick them here in the ground anyways. So these ones haven't been mulched yet, but you can definitely tell the difference between the ones that got into the ground as opposed to the ones that were stuck in those little pots. Those ones were in the ground, and these puny ones just got planted. I figured even if those tomato plants don't make it, I'm not losing anything because those are plants that were going to get tossed into the compost anyways. And so I figured, why not just stick them in the ground and see what happens? So that's what I did. Alright, backing up over here. This trellis in particular has not yet been planted. I'm actually going to sit down and go through my seeds and decide what I want to plant there. This area right here down in front of it is all flowers, perennials. This is stone crop back there. I have some bulbs that I stuck in the ground. And then this perennial here is actually just beginning to flower. And then next to it I have a section of peppers, and you can really tell which one is the Chinese 5 color. I mean, look at the foliage. Look at the color on that one right there. Now over on the far side, back over there, is a jigsaw pepper. Now I was really excited to try these jigsaw peppers this year because not only are the peppers all sorts of cool colors like the Chinese 5 color are, but even the leaves are multicolored, purple and green, and I thought those are so cool looking. They are struggling. They are seriously struggling. And it could just be that it's too cold, I don't know, but all the rest of the peppers seem to be doing okay, but those jigsaws are just not. Many of them did not germinate, so I'm thinking of going and seeing if I have any more seeds. I don't remember how many came in that packet, but if I have some more, I might go ahead and try and see if I can get a few more started. Over here on this trellis, I have Chinese noodle beans, and those are coming up on both sides. That flower right there is Gaillardia, I think it's called. And then next to it is one of my comfrey patches. Down in front here I have more perennials. I have a dahlia. I have some of the bulbs that I don't remember what they're called. And then this is a scarlet coneflower, kind of like the purple coneflower echinacea, except it's that beautiful red color. This section isn't fully planted yet. I put in some onions. I put onions in there just kind of as an impulse thing. I don't think they're gonna make it. They're looking pretty bad. So I'll probably pull all those out and just plant something else. Swinging around to this side, over there where I have it mulched, that is butternut squash. In front of it, I planted a couple different varieties of sunflowers. Not really seeing them coming up yet, but what I am seeing is a bunch of Tulsi basil that reseeded itself from last year. So I will probably let a few of those grow. I'll pull out some of it, but I have no problem having another Tulsi holy basil patch right here. And then here again, I've got two tomato plants that were previously planted, and then one right there that I just stuck in the ground as one of those why nots. And then of course another comfrey patch. All right, so that is those two long beds there. Coming down to this one, this is kind of like a medium-sized bed. All right, so right here I have some yellow crookneck squash. These are just seedlings that I picked up at the farmer's co-op. And then pretty much the entire rest of the bed has not yet been planted, except for that one trellis right there at the base. I have the Chinese noodle beans, and then I have oregano that came back on its own. Like I said, I've got all sorts of plants that are started and up on the front porch. And so while this is a lot of empty space, those will get moved in and fill in all of this over time. And then this is my zucchini bed, and there is zucchinis in every mound. And these are the Ford Hook zucchini. It's the same kind I grew last year. I really liked this zucchini, and so that's what I'm growing again. And then over here I have these two raised beds out here in the no-till garden. This bed is all tomatoes on this side. I've got some Dr. Witchies, I have some Vernissage, and then I have a Berkeley pink tie-dye. This side has been seeded with different flowers and herbs. Unfortunately, right there against that side, I have a giant fire ant mound. I have a natural way of getting rid of fire ants. Unfortunately, I ran out of one of the ingredients. I've ordered it. It's supposed to be here this week. And then I will be able to take care of that, because I'm not going to spray my garden beds with pesticides or anything like that, because that's food. This is food that I'm growing. And so I only use things that are safe. And yeah, so if it means I have to wait a little bit, it's okay. And then finally, my pepper bed down here. And like I said, I planted 10 different varieties of peppers. This bed had one of each of those varieties, but the Jigsaw Pepper just shriveled up and did not make it. Which is, again, why I'm going to see if I can't maybe start some more of those and get those in the ground when it's a little bit warmer. So, we'll see. So tonight we have no chance of frost, but it is going to be a little bit chilly yet, so I'm going to take all of the buckets that you see laying out here stacked up, and I'm going to cover up my pepper plants again, just to keep them happy in these cold temperatures. But it looks like there's no more frost or chances of frost, and it looks like we are in the clear for this year. I hope. So that is a very quick tour, week 2 of the garden, both the raised bed garden and our no-till garden. I plan on doing these tours every single week on a weekly basis all through the garden season, as long as the weather allows it. So thanks for joining me here again. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.